You poor folks, you've been waiting for some chess, so let's get into this. Hopefully the microphone will keep on working for a little while. If you feel like participating in that Twitter game, by all means, and we'll read those as the night goes on. So here we have our first open Sicilian, guys. Pawn takes, knight to f6, knight to c3, and e5. Now, I didn't know that Carlsen was a Sveshnikov player. I really didn't know what he played in open Sicilians. But now I know that he likes to play the Sveshnikov. Normally speaking, a move like e5 in an opening like this would be totally wrong, because immediately you've turned the d-pawn into a backwards pawn. That's just not a good idea in practice. Backwards pawn means that there's no pawns on the adjoining files that can be used to protect this pawn. So whether the pawn stays, moves one forward, or moves two forward, it's not going to make any difference. This pawn cannot make a move which will protect it with pawns. No move can be made to protect this with pawns. So you have to tie down your pieces, which are supposed to be used for attacking, to the defense of this pawn. So the move knight to b5 is played. I'm sure that knight b3 and e3 are moves as well, but by far the most common move and the only real sensible move is knight to b5. White is now threatening to hop into the d6 square, which is quite annoying. Can lead to an exchange and win a bishop. The bad bishop and the altar pawn. Yes, exactly like that. Now do that on Twitter and tag it with Chess at the Movies. Okay, and if you just click on Chess at the Movies, if you click on it, it should be highlighted in blue. Then it should take you to a page where it'll just like automatically like have that typed in, so you don't have to physically type it by hand. Or you can cut and paste it if that's too complicated for you, if you're not Twitter savvy. Some GMs, Rufus says, don't recommend the Sicilian line unless you are a master of that. So the guys that I've known that have been really good quality Sveshnikov players were like 22, 2300 and up. And it is extremely difficult, folks. This isn't some trick opening. This is a very, very, very difficult opening. Black's next reply is almost forced. He plays the move d6 to take that square away from the knight. And even though this is a backwards pawn, White has a few problems. Number one, his knight is kind of in no man's land on b5 over here. Number two, the e-pawns are stymied, so they're not going anywhere. It's not like there's anything that's going to actually physically attack this pawn, except for these pieces. And even though it looks really scary to have a couple of pieces there, how are you going to get any additional pieces? So it's temporarily covered. And it's not so easy to figure out how to make use of this pawn. It's more likely that White is going to make use of this d5 square instead. It's a little bit positional, but it's also sort of a system where there's a certain series of moves that are, you know, not forced, but that are extremely common. Of course, Fabiano is going to vary and throw that theory in the crapper for me, but you'll see when we get to that point. So the move d6, and then actually this is it right now. He already plays the move knight to d5. Here's how things normally go down. Generally speaking, the move bishop to g5 is played. The idea is, for example, if bishop to e7, now if I do bishop takes and bishop takes, I have knight takes d6. So in that line, if I did bishop takes, Black would have to do g takes, which is not so bad. He's going to get an open, half-open g file, and this king is relatively safe, so you could do that if you wanted. What's more common here is in this position, the move a6 gets played, forcing the knight back to a3, and now on b5, in addition to gaining some extra space with these pawns, there's also just the stone-cold threat of b5. Plus, you've taken away this threat here anyways, on d6. So now normally the move knight to d5 is played, and for example, bishop to e6, and let's say, I don't know, for example, bishop takes, and c3. This is a standard sort of a setup. Now probably bishop to g5 is going to take place, and then at some point in time, this knight is going to regroup, the bishop's going to end up on d3, and White is going to castle. Meanwhile, Black is going to castle, bring his rook over to b8 for a possible b-pawn push, bring the knight back to e7 to challenge this knight, and shoot his f-pawn up the board. So it's quite a complex opening. There's some little tricks and traps you got to watch out for, but basically the best White can get out of this is to take advantage of this d5 hole. But it turns out that it's not easy to make good use out of it, and it's very difficult to ever get any real attack against this d6 pawn. Are you guys with me so far? Halvert says knight to b3 is just considered bad, so we're talking back in this position here. that knight to b3 is just considered bad. I'm not familiar with these lines. Let's see what Mr. Computer says. Mr. Computer agrees with you that it's not super great. Black's already getting the small edge here, or at least equality, with this pin automatically, and there's already a threat on the e-pawn, so that makes a lot of sense. Knight to f3, I imagine, yeah, that he could just do the same kind of a thing. I mean, it's too early in the game for this to matter. Bishop to c4, bishop takes, pawn takes, knight takes, I would even castle. Like if bishop to here, bishop takes, pawn takes, knight takes, I would actually just castle. Oh yeah, this is actually a good move too. Totally missed this. For some reason I thought he could come back to d6, but this is just a free piece. Okay, so that's even better. Okay, so you can see that that's not going to work. But anyways, this knight to b5 is just common sense because it basically forces this main line. Whoops. With bishop to g5. Okay, let's turn off Mr. Computer. So instead, Fabi plays this really unusual move. I've never seen this move before. It's a move, but nobody has ever played this against me in any level, even in a Blitz game. I've never seen this move before over the board. Hey, Vercingetrix in the house. What's up, man? It's the same thing. You pretty much forced to play knight to b5. Yeah. So, but this line is really unusual. This is a strange move. I've never really seen this before. I guess there's a double attack on c7, and so the knight can't really take the e-pawn. And on knight takes and pawn takes, the move knight to e7 seems somehow unpalatable because you're temporarily blocking your own bishop. And so in this line, Carlsen played the move knight to b8, and then came the move a4. So these are a series of very unusual moves. a4 is actually quite intelligent. a4 is not so much about protecting this knight, although it's handy that if there's a queen check that I can play bishop to d2 now. But what's really great about this a4 move is you're threatening to continue to advance this pawn, and you're making space for white, you're cramping black's position, and there might even be chances one day of a crazy rook lift. So it's nice to get this little bit of extra space with a4. Halvard says, I've been playing this knight d5 line for a long time, mostly in Blitz, though not playing it, not playing too much e4 in Classical. I get you. Okay. Well, it's good to have a strong player in the house that can maybe give us some insights into some of these lines. It's pretty new for me, man. It's not really something I've ever seriously considered. So, and then Fabi continues to play a slightly unusual line. This is typical Fabi style. He's going to play his bishop to e2. He doesn't have to play anything too aggressive. It's a blocked center. Once again, you see that this backwards pawn, as awful as it is, very early in the game, white has created a line where there's now a pawn on d5, so these pawns are blocked. Once again, it's not so easy to come in here and attack that backwards pawn. So black is actually fairly solid here. Castles, castles. Now knight to d7, so he's ready to come back into the game with that knight. And bishop to d2, slightly unusual move again. I suppose the idea of this is that he can't really ever regroup to b6, and you're going to see an interesting line coming up shortly with stuff like that. Now in this move, I believe f5 was played here, and Fabi responded instantly. Now I believe there was a Boris Gelfand game that went a5 here. And the idea was, again, to try to remove any chance for white to continue to build space by continuing to advance this pawn. So he's just making a little bit of space. If he needs a square for his rook, he'll have it. But most importantly, this rook can't come up past the third line. And there's not going to be this extra cramp on the b pawn. So it's just kind of a space-giving move. I'm not sure here if he should be playing c4. I'm gonna take a quick check in and see if see what's going on at the let's see what's happening with chess at the movies. See if anybody's come up with anything. Oh wow, somebody's tried this before. Chess Club Live has done this before, Chess at the Movies in 2016. See, it's not even the first time somebody's come up with this this. Tag. You guys will get the hang of it, man. You guys will get the hang of it. We'll get some hashtaggers in there, and we'll you guys will get into the swing of how hashtag games work. Okay, so a5 is a possible move. Again, I don't really know exactly what's going on here. I don't really know what the plan is. I'm assuming that c4. Maybe someday like f4 is gonna get played here. I really don't know. It could also just be that bishop to c3 is a good move. But I would rather play c4 first and then bishop to c3. And then if I have to, I can put my knight back on a3. And there's other moves that could be played here. It's possible to play knight to f6 as well. So the move bishop to d2, slightly unusual, very shallow. And Fabi's not going to put his pieces on any aggressive squares just yet. So f5, and then immediately Fabi did play this move with a5. So as soon as f5 was played, he played this. So he must have been familiar with this Boris Gelfand game and thought, you know what, I'm going to take advantage of that space. So again, this square is covered. The b6 square is covered. The rook can lift to a4 and come over this way if it needs to. And even the knight can regroup if it has to challenge c5. Or to land in b6, which is eventually what happened. But this knight's not going anywhere right now, so black is going to have to kick it. He plays the move a6, and all the commentators thought that this move was kind of automatic, knight to a3. They all were like, well, yeah, you know, obviously the knight's going to go back to a3. I don't understand why would the knight go to a3. It doesn't make any sense to me. Why wouldn't you just come back to c3? I guess they're all hung up on this c4 idea. But I don't see anything wrong with this move. In fact, let's say, for example, if b5 now, just as an example, pawn takes and knight takes, now knight to b1 is a shocking move, where I'm threatening to put my bishop onto the a5 square, and I'm also just going to regroup my knight anyways through a3. So what the heck? Knight to here is probably not going to work. I guess just probably, do I just play here right now? I might even just play this one first. And if here, then I'll maybe do this one. Yeah, so you can't do that. So yeah, this line is completely fine for white. So I don't really understand why they're talking about, oh, you have to play your knight to a3. I think they're hung up on the c4 idea, which is a good idea, and ultimately it was probably what gave white his best winning chances. So maybe they just see from further away that it's important to crack this d pawn open on the c file. So this is the only pawn that can do that. So they just don't want to block that pawn with their knight. And at any rate, Fabi agreed with them and played the move knight to a3. Okay, so we're going to take a little break here. We're going to take a little break from this game here. Make sure everybody's alive and well out there in the chat. And we're going to take a look at, first let's give you guys some little treats. It is the Trout Show, so it wouldn't be a Trout Show if I didn't give you Timbits, would it? It wouldn't be much of a Trout Show if you didn't get some Timbits. Everybody, go ahead and dig in, have as many as you want. Help yourself to some delicious Timbits. They're donut holes. They're donut holes, and there's stuff inside of them. What's inside of them? Jelly. Jelly and jam. Mmm, Timbits. Okay. Right, Verson? Delicious. So fun when people go into lines you have analyzed deeply that is just considered to be bad for them. I guess Halvard is saying that my lines are bad, but those are my original takes on this position at any rate. So we've been looking at the world champions through history. We've gone through Steinitz, we've gone through Lasker, Capablanca, Alekhine, Uwe, Botvinnik, and Smyslov. And today we're going to take a brief look at The 8th and 9th world champions, linear. The 8th world champion was Mikhail Tal. Mikhail Tal was a fearless attacker of ageless qualities. He's been called the Magician of Riga. Came from Latvia and developed very young, very young. I believe he was 23 years old when he won the world championship. He was the youngest world champion in history at the time. Mikhail Tal won the world championship in 1960 from Mikhail Botvinnik, who you can see pictured on the picture in the right. On the left-hand side in that picture is Botvinnik, and on the right hand is a young Tal. In those days, there was a clause that if you were to beat the world champion, that they were entitled to a rematch. And so, when Mikhail Tal won in 1960, he was forced to give a rematch 1 year later to Mikhail Botvinnik. By this point in time, Tal had developed some health ailments. He struggled with kidney problems all of his life, which may have played a factor in him losing the title. So he was actually only the world champion for a single year. He was an absolutely astonishing attacker who could find something out of thin air. He was known for smoking cigarettes at the board and his extremely intense gaze. He was a somewhat sloppy man in real life and probably had very few interests outside of chess. But he was one of the true great geniuses. He was also incredibly powerful at speed chess and remained so until late in his life, winning the World Speed Chess Championship over the likes of, for example, Garry Kasparov. In, I believe it was 1988 in St. John, New Brunswick, Canada. There was a massive chess festival right here in my home country. Elsie Wayne was pictured, the mayor of the town was pictured playing chess with Garry Kasparov at that time. And at any rate, Tal, well into his 60s by this point in time, beat all the young whippersnappers to win the World Blitz Championship. So he was also an extremely fast player, indicating a high level of talent and pattern recognition. So that was your number 8 linear world champion. After Tal lost to Botvinnik, Botvinnik continued to maintain the title for a period of time before playing, I believe it might have been 1966, but I'd have to check on the exact date. But at any rate, he finally lost the world championship, having won it back 3 times. He lost for the final time against Tigran Petrosian, a man often credited with bringing popularity to chess in Armenia. Chess continues several generations later to benefit in Armenia from the presence of Tigran Petrosian, and this can be attested by the likes of Levon Aronian and many others who developed out of this extremely powerful chess country. And in the center of this picture, you can see the bust, the concrete bust at his gravestone, where he's wearing the decorative wreath, which is a tradition in chess world championships, that the winner of the world championship is decorated in a sash and a wreath. So he's forever immortalized there. You can see him on the right playing against Bobby Fischer, and in the bottom you can see him playing against Mikhail Botvinnik for the world championship, which he won. He defended his title at least once successfully against Boris Spassky. However, he lost the rematch against Spassky, and of course Spassky went on to play against Fischer, and those will be the next 2 world champions we'll take a look at. Tigran Petrosian was the absolute genius of prophylaxis. He was considered one of the hardest chess players to beat in the history of the game. Although he got a lot of draws, he was very patient and could sniff out danger, it was said, from 20 moves away. He didn't lose a single game competitively in the entire year of 1962. And he founded or expounded upon a lot of common positional motifs, which are just part of everyday practice in chess today. And we owe those tactics and techniques to Tigran Petrosian. For example, the positional rook sacrifice was very much populated and expounded upon by Tigran Petrosian. Now that's something we're all aware of. So there are your 8th and 9th linear world chess champions, Mikhail Tal and Tigran Petrosian, as we continue our countdown of the linear world champions leading up to Magnus Carlsen, who you can see right in the center holding a trophy in my collage picture of all the linear world champions. Yeah, pre-engine, I mean, there certainly weren't any chess programs of any consequence, at least until well into the 80s. I remember there was a guy right here in my hometown named Jonathan Schaefer. Jonathan Schaefer had a microcomputer called Phoenix, which was designed to be able to learn from moves that people played against it. So it got better as it played strong players. And at that time, this microcomputer was about 2,000 rated, which was just unheard of in the world of chess in these days. Jonathan Schaefer eventually went on to write the computer program that solved checkers. So every single legal possible move in the game of checkers has been analyzed by a computer. The result is checkers is a draw. So this was discovered by a computer run by Jonathan Schaefer. There was a funny story about how he had this computer Phoenix playing in a simul against Kevin Spraggett. Might have even been 1988. And the Canadian Open was in town. Vladimir Chukmakov won that year, and Kevin Spraggett was giving a simul, and Jonathan Schaefer had Phoenix playing in the simul against Kevin Spraggett for practice. Not practice for Spraggett, practice for the computer. And at one point in time, Yasser Seirawan wanders in, unbeknownst to Kevin Spraggett, and starts feeding moves to the computer. So it took a little while before Kasparov suddenly realized that the skill level of this computer had picked up dramatically. And so eventually Yasser came out, and it was just kind of a fun joke, but that was a fun story with that computer. So, but anyways, all this to say that there were no crazy computers back in the days of Tigran Petrosian or Mikhail Tal. These guys came up with that stuff on their own. They didn't even have access to the kinds of, like, you know, literature and stuff that we have today. It wasn't the same, you know, especially if you were in a certain country. You had access mostly to, you know, books from your country and in your language. Yeah, Levon's awesome. I've got a lot of respect for Levon. I think Levon Aronian versus Carlsen would be a fantastic world championship. Maybe we'll get to see it one day. Halvard says one of the few countries that have chess as a subject. You're talking about Armenia? That's interesting. I know that some Eastern Bloc countries have it. I believe Romania has it. I could be wrong. I could be Bulgaria, but I believe some of those Eastern Bloc countries have it. Of course, if you lived in Soviet Russia, you could get stuff for free. You could go into anything you wanted. Whatever you were good at. University, chess, sports, whatever. It was just free. If you had talent in it, they just sent you to school for free. It was wonderful. But, of course, that was also communism, so it wasn't all good. But so I think that you can still easily get yourself into a chess school in Russia if you're talented, but it's not necessarily part of the curriculum. I'm not sure whether that's the case or not. Verson giving me some claps. Thank you, Verson. Yeah, that was a funny Yasser story. He's got a million of them, but that was a good one. Vertwitch says, hey, how you doing, Vertwitch? He says, Fabiano Caruana could be the first American world chess champion since 1972. Brooklyn-raised Grandmaster Fabiano Caruana is playing Magnus Carlsen for the 2018 World Chess Championship crown. I didn't know that he was raised in Brooklyn. I heard that he had been born in Miami, Florida. I know that he spent some years, like 10 years, living in Italy. And then came back to America, hopefully because of the chess. And because he loves his country, hopefully. But irregardless, he would be the first world champion from North America since Bobby Fischer. There have been others that have challenged, that have come close. Geta Kamsky played in some of those split title tournaments back in the 90s, but he never won. And Canadian Kevin Spraggett made it to the second round of the candidates tournament, beating Ivan Sokolov before losing to Boris Gulko in the quarterfinals, the semifinals. So he also went pretty far, but that was just that one time, and it was a bit of a fluke. All right, let's get back into this game, guys. Let's finish this up. Maybe we can play a few games. So we were just looking at this line here. So Fabi has taken a little extra space with this move, a5. He's clearly still in his preparation. a6, knight to a3. I still believe that knight to c3 is a playable line. Halvard seemed to think that maybe that wasn't the case, but... Rufus given a little bit of... okay, so Rufus says that he was Born in Miami at age 5, 1998. He was born in Miami at the age of 5. Wow. That must have been some kind of a labor. My gracious. Born in Miami at the age of 5. No, but at the age of 5, he relocated from Miami to Park Slope, Brooklyn. In New York City, he learned to play chess at an after-school program. Well, that's pretty sweet. His first official tournament took place at the Susan Polgar Chess Center in Queens, New York, and at the age of 6, he started trading with his first coach, the renowned national master Bruce Pandolfini, who you might remember as the Ben Kingsley character from Searching for Bobby Fischer, although of course that was dramatized for the purpose of the movie. He's not really that ogre, you know. Can you see the pieces? Let me make it easier for you. You know, he knocks all the pieces on the floor. Fun fact about that movie, they used real grandmasters in the tournament hall. When he brought Josh and his father to take a look at how chess players work. Roman Gingy-Hashvili and Joel Benjamin, for example, were in that room, and it was really actually them. And you might remember Asa Hoffman, the guy who, you know, I got him thinking, maybe I can win a pawn, you know. And then Ben Kingsley's like, you know, how much money did you make on the chess circuit last year? $400, $500? To show the kid the good, the bad, and the ugly of the chess world. But that's really interesting information. Rufus continues on. He says, at age 10, Fabiano became the youngest American to defeat a grandmaster in an official tournament. 10 years old, beating a grandmaster. Can you guys imagine that? Holy cow. By age 12, he had attained the international title of FIDE Master. Subsequent achievements included winning several national scholastic championships. In 2004, his family relocated from the United States to Europe so that he could better pursue a professional chess career. Hey, Card Counter Chris, what's up, man? Card Counter Chris, I think I got you on my new Twitter page. We're doing a hashtag game today, but I don't think chess players know how hashtag games work. I mean, it's pretty easy. Basically, you just make a joke where it involves chess, but it has something to do with movies. A movie title, a funny movie quote, but you just throw like a chess term in there somehow. It's pretty simple, guys. And it's chess at the movies. And if you're not on my Twitter, you can just type !Twitter, and there you go. You can go and follow me on Twitter if you want. And Card Counter Chris, while he's in here, let's give the man a shout out. Sometimes I kind of wish your name was a little shorter, because I have really bad eyesight, and I always type it wrong. But there we go, Card Counter Chris. He's a Magic the Gathering streamer and puts on a really good show. So go give Card Counter Chris a follow. In fact, a lot of the guys from our show, like Bear Twitch and other people, have been known to go on there and check it out as well. Maybe I shouldn't be calling out people, but cool. So Rufus giving us a little bit of information on Fabi. He says in 2017, at the age of 14, he became the youngest grandmaster in the history of the United States, beating the record set by Bobby Fischer. Well, I'm not sure where you're getting this information from. I'm not quite 100% sure all of this information is right. I mean, wasn't Nakamura younger than Bobby Fischer, for example? But imagine that, guys. Age 14, a grandmaster. That's incredible. That is just... I mean, I've had some really talented students that have probably been pretty close to that, but although I'm not the one that helped them to get to that level, they were just like from my chess camps or from when they were kids or something. But to get to grandmaster at that age, wow, unbelievable. Okay, so we're going to continue on a little bit, and when Rufus, feel free to keep sharing some more of this Fabi information as you go along. Rufus is a big Fabi booster. There's definitely people that want to see Fabi win. I have to say that in an overall sense, I feel like, I mean, it's close. He's had his bad games too, but I feel like in an overall sense, Fabi has been the better player in this match, despite the fact that it's all been draws. I mean, I don't think he's the most exciting player in the world, but I like his chess because it's just so sound. So it's hard for me to not enjoy really high level sound chess like this. So I enjoy watching Fabi play. I can see why he's not everyone's cup of tea, but I'll be perfectly fine if a North American wins this. Nightbot made a spelling mistake. That should say Magic the player. Does it say Magic pair? Okay, let me work on that, Rufus. Did it really say that? Where are we here? It does say Magic pair. Nice spot, Rufus. Nice spot. I will fix that. I will fix that shortly. Okay, so let's see how this game continues here, guys. It does get exciting. Okay, so we're going to try to blitz through this. So we got the move e4 in, knight to c4. So that knight is coming to the b6 square, which is just an annoying square to be on. And white is just going to try to cramp black up a little bit. Maybe take advantage of this really bad bishop here on c8. Meanwhile, at some point in time, this f-pawn is going to continue onwards with its march and possibly the e-pawn push. So the move comes knight to e5, and if he takes it and pawn takes, white might already be losing here because this pawn now is hanging. So let's say, for example, let's say bishop to c3 and f5. If bishop takes, I might already be able to push this. Can I get away with this? Maybe he does have to play this first because there's also the pawn push. So let's play bishop to d6 first. In fact, maybe I should be playing this first. But still, the point is, whether now or later, this f5 move is coming. And I don't think there's anything practical that can be done. You don't want to play g6 in that line. It's not going to help you. The pawn's still going to end up on f3. So this is like a really ugly position for white already. I mean, is he supposed to play like f3 here now or something? No, this is disgusting. I mean, at some point in time, this is going to come in. It's too gross, guys. So I don't think you can get away with that. Same thing if you play knight back to here. I feel like this is just going to come. So I don't think there's any other practical thing that you can do here. Maybe some kind of like crazy f4 or something, but basically white played the only move that was sensible, which is knight to b6. So that's so now for a little while this knight is going to be, the question is going to be, is this knight doing a better job of cramping, like is he doing enough of a job cramping black's position, or is this knight just out of play? Because if it's out of play and black can just develop normally and like put his rooks on e8 and f8 and then shoot his pawns up the board, then this knight's just going to be stupid over there, right? So this knight has to find something to do, and pretty quick. I am a payer of magic though, so not entirely inaccurate. You guys are watching the Trout Show. I am your host, The Trout. My followers numbers have absolutely hemorrhaged since I started doing these reviews of games. It's not for everyone, and plus the timing that I do it, like I think a lot of people were just following other shows and stuff. because there's so many people doing it. So it's kind of boring, and I can understand why not everybody's into it. So so I've plummeted from like 17, like 22 average viewers to like 15 or something. So I have totally hemorrhaged, guys. So I'm doing this because of I want to put the VODs out. There are some people that have shown a lot of interest. There's been a lot of people who have messaged me about missing the VODs and stuff like that, and wanting to hear my takes on these games and stuff like that. So just do me a favor. If you're not following, hit that follow button. Give me a couple of bits, like you guys have done today. Follow my friends that I post their link. Put a hashtag out on Twitter. Anything that you want to do. Follow me on Discord. Anything that you can do to give me a little bit of support to justify to do these shows is greatly appreciated. Alright, so we got Knight to B6. And I don't want to be one of those guys, like, you know, I don't want to, like, name the big shows and stuff, but it used to really bother me when I'd come on to shows and, like, I felt like I was guilt-tripped, like, if I didn't, like, give them money, then, like, you know, I wasn't welcome on their show, and I was, like, a freeloader, and I used to really hate those kinds of shows, so I never want to be that kind of a show. I never want people to think like they're not welcome if they don't have the means. There's a lot of different ways that you can support the show if you don't have the financial means, so you don't have to do that. I don't expect you to do that every time you come onto my show. Don't ever feel guilty. Don't ever spend money that you don't have or put yourself in a situation, you know, to give me some little bits or something on my show. Just hit the follow button, hang around, chat, mod, do whatever things that you guys are doing, and you're giving me a big benefit with that. Ginger GM's YouTube synopses are the best, but I like your analysis of the games as well. Oh, thank you, Rufus. That's kind. Yeah, there's a few good ones that I like. I like Peter Svidler. I don't really get into a lot of them because some of them rely like too heavily on computer lines. I don't like that. Bertrout supporting streamers is great. The easiest way to do it is to watch. Yeah, watching and like just you know when people like when you send people on a raid or you tell someone about another streamer and they follow that person, even if it's just like 1 or 2 people a month, but if you have 10 other streamers that are doing that, you're really increasing the numbers overall. Like we really are helping each other when you do that. So that's a big deal. You know what I mean? And we're a pretty cool community here on Twitch. We do support each other a lot. So the streamers, and the community, the watchers as well. It's just a great community. It was bitter for me to go back to Twitter, man. It was bitter. I spent 4 long years on there. I had relationships on there. I had great successes in the hashtag world. I was involved in sports radio shows, and I did a whole bunch of different kinds of things that I was heavily involved with on Twitch. Had a lot of celebrity interactions, but there's a lot of poison on Twitter as well. There's a lot of darkness. There's a lot of politics. There's a lot of just evil and trolling. It's just it's unbearable. It's unbearable, and it's not a place I want to hang out. It was just something that I needed as a tool to supplement my Twitch business. But for me, Twitch and Discord have taken over. Twitch is the new Twitter, and I don't need that place anymore. It's just a means to an end. It's not a place to hang out anymore for me. But I do miss my friends. I miss my 2,000 followers of real people and friends that I've interacted with for many years. So, all right. So we got knight to b6. The rook comes over to b8. That's right. Twitch is the new Twitter, Kingly. It really is, man. It really is. I mean, you have more control over what you're doing. You can clear your chat. There's less trolls. The community is warm and welcoming. You can video and interact with people while seeing them. I mean, show me one way where it's not better, right? The only way that it's not better is that it doesn't have the same kind of like news, but that's kind of that. I don't even say that's a negative. I would say that's a plus, because the news of Twitter was one of the most horrible things. Like, you know, every morning I'd wake up and it would be like Stevie Wonder is the top trender, and I'd be like, oh my God, Stevie Wonder's dead. Oh my God, I would think, oh my God, what am I gonna do? I can't go on. And then I like go and look and I find out, oh, Stevie Wonder is gonna like do a concert of his like songs in the keys of life in New York City. Wow, cool. And then I'm like, oh God, oh my God. Like, imagine starting your day like that, but every day for 4 years. It was like starting every day with a heart attack. Nothing but bad news, gross politics, super polarization. It was just awful. It was a horrible place that I I had grown to loathe. Right? So, like, yeah, I just couldn't take it anymore, man. I couldn't take it anymore. Right, Kingly? Right? That's what it was like that. Totally was like that. So yeah, no, thank you very much. I'll take my Twitch community, chess and you know, awesome peeps and you know, buying each other's merch mugs and preparing, you know, round table shows and fun little tournaments and stuff like that. I'll take that any day over that hellhole. Okay, so rook to b8, f5, f4 does get played. So the problem with this line, because here's the problem, this pawn doesn't have any future. Even though it's technically a passed pawn, you might think, well, I'm going to hold on to that. I'm going to have a passed pawn, but this pawn can't go anyplace because there's two blocking pawns on the adjoining ranks files. So on these two files here, it's gonna make it very difficult to ever do anything with this pawn, and also it's stymieing the move g5 later. So black takes it, the bishop takes, and then comes this move g5, this move is probably not right. This is a slugfest, guys. I think Magnus is just saying, I'm tired of these draws, and I'm gonna test this guy, and I'm gonna play a little crazy and see what happens. Maybe he thought that, you know, Fabi would play passively, and that he would get a powerful position, but this move is very weakening. And black has weak pawns and points all over the board. There's still this pretty powerful knight on b6. It's not easy to dislodge it. Okay. And so c4 does get played. In this position, this is kind of a pretty gutsy move, again, by Fabi, because you have to be really careful of this move g4. I mean, look at how quick these pawns are getting up in your face. But it's not really a big deal. You can simply play the bishop back to e2. White is perfectly safe here. So, and Fabi being Fabi, he likes to play his pieces back deep like this. So I don't really think there's going to be any issues with something like this taking place. Queen and King 2018 making a splash. What is up, Queen and King? Welcome, welcome. Thank you for that follow. I appreciate you joining me on the Trout Show today. Taking a look at Game 8 of the World Championship match. So here's what's going on now with c4. The move c5 is coming in. If c5 gets played, then at some point in time, there's also going to be this pawn push. This pawn push is devastating. If the pawn gets to d6, not only is this bishop in big trouble, there's also the continued push of d6, trapping the bishop. Plus, by clearing the d5 square, now you can play moves like, for example, bishop to d5, and there's even mate threats with like bishop to c3. So this is getting disgusting for black very quickly. c4 is a very powerful move. The move f5 was played. That's probably the best move. So he's going to stymie this bishop right here, and he's just simply threatening to push the pawn again. This time he'll have the additional move of f3. And then it's like, okay, bishop to c3, so he's going to get on that line immediately. So now it's even more scary, the possibility of this bishop to d4 coming. So basically c5 is coming right now. c5 is coming right now, and it's a crushing blow. Black must be extremely careful of how to handle this situation. There was a lot of analysis, and you can go up and look up some other guys. I don't have all of my notes right here in front of me from the other day, because we're more than 24 hours later now, so I can't give you all of the exacting lines the way that somebody else could. I know that Naka here was considering the move bishop to f6, but I think bishop to f6 is just losing. After c5, pawn takes, and d6, for example, this is a complete loss. Completely lost position. Let's see what Mr. Silicon has to say. Okay, Mr. Silicon saying 1.2. It's saying it's not completely lost, but folks, you gotta trust me, man. This is bad. This game is bad. It suggests knight takes bishop. I'm not gonna take it with the pawn. I'm gonna take it with the queen. Oh, I see it. Oh, I see. I'm hanging the pawn, so I can't do that. So hold on. Do I have to do this? Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Can I play check here? Oh, it's check. Okay, so I can't do that. So I do have to take that. Wait a minute. What's going on here? Now bishop to here and queen here. The computer says this is an inaccuracy, f4. It says the best move here was knight to d7. Knight to d7. Trying to get rid of the so-called problem bishop on b6. I'm not so sure that that's the case. I'm not really buying that that is a problem. This knight on b6. I feel like this bishop is out of play. So I kind of like this move f5. And after bishop to here, I think what he did was right. He played the move bishop to f5. And this is the line that I thought. But I thought here that this was the line where Naka thought that bishop to f6 was right. But there's no way this can be right. Pawn here, right? This game's over, man. White is busting through. Once a piece gets on here, he's going to have a bishop and a queen or another bishop. Raking across the board like this, this king is completely blown open. All the pawns are disappearing. White's attack is going to stymie. These pawns aren't going to be able to get too far. Even if he pushes to f3, you're just going to push right past it. We'll ban that one. So I don't know. Like, isn't this completely lost, guys? Is there Halvard or somebody on here that has a better line? Anyways, I thought that this bishop to f5 was the best move for black. And, I mean, I thought that he had some aggression, but there's too many weak points, man. Black is too loose here. The pawn goes to c5 anyways. The knight takes, and now he does do the queen takes. Again, he's just trying to, if he can get onto this square, he will. Pawn takes. Rook to d1. Rook to d1. I think here rook to e1 was discussed as a possible alternative. What's going on with my music here? Where's my music? I can't remember the lines after rook to e1. Bishop to here? I really don't remember the lines, guys. And anyways, here's where white made a fatal not blunder, but I don't know if I would call this a blunder, but it's a pretty serious inaccuracy, man. He's finally decided that he's afraid of this attack coming of Magnus, and he's made a terrible move, and this should be an obvious move. I don't think you have to be super skilled to see that queen to h5 is a really dangerous move. So we got Mr. Trollbot's having some fun tonight. Oh, there, finally, hey, look at that, guys. I finally got included. I finally got included in the Trolls band. And the Trolls, he addressed me personally. Wow, I feel so special, guys. I've been included in the Trolls, Comments. I've made it, guys. I'm a real Twitter person now, or Twitch person. So let's see what the computer says about this line, because I don't really remember all of my lines here, to be honest with you. Getting a little bit tired. On queen here, I'm just going to take this. Queen to g6, queen takes, pawn takes. It suggests the knight move first. But the problem with this move is if the bishop comes back, I've got d6. So for example, if rook comes over, knight takes and rook takes, and then I'm going to take his f-pawn. And I'm just going to be a pawn up here. It's an opposite colored bishop's ending. So there's one passed pawn. There's a potential for a second one. We'll have to see how this one goes, but there are still two rooks on the board. So this is probably, I don't know about winning, but this is a really good position for white. I mean, I would be happy to press this position if I was Fabi. And I think he would be too. Maybe he really did see all of this and assessed his position as not being that much better. Maybe he was afraid to get into those lines. I don't know. But I feel like this move was pretty clearly the best move, queen to h5. And by playing h3, this is a move that Fabi's got to stop making. He's got to stop being afraid. And if we go back one move, let's turn on the computer. It goes from 1.4 to 0.2. It goes from winning to dead draw. Winning, dead draw. And now we're going to see how this is a really cute little move. This queen move is really excellent. He's eyeing a couple of squares on e4 and e3. He's also threatening to come out both to g6 and to h4. So this is a more accurate move than the rook to e8. The knight comes back, and now he's going to get that queen to g6 in. So now black is completely fine. He's covering this bishop on d6. So this pawn can't make any progress right now. If he puts a rook on e1, black's just going to do the same thing. So this knight has been forced to come back into the play, and I don't think at this point in time with this blockade, I don't really think that there's a problem with the knight takes and the queen takes. You're going to end up with an opposite colored bishop ending. Black has an extra pawn here. Knight takes, queen takes, h4. That's actually a good move, but it's come too late. I think the idea of h4 is that if h6 takes place, then white has this move g4. I think this was the idea. It's possible that that even could have been played earlier. Like even as early as here. So h4, pawn takes, queen takes f4, queen takes, rook takes, h5. So white can take his pawn back anytime he wants. Rook to e1, bishop g4, rook to f6, rook takes, bishop takes, king to f7, bishop takes h4, and this is an absolute dead draw. An absolute dead draw. White's not even going to try to fight for it. He's just going to come over and swap off pawns. And this is going to peter out into a draw. But there was a long period of time. Let's see if we can pinpoint the point where, I think it was when black played g5. Okay, let's turn on the computer here. Okay, black's doing okay. Black's doing okay. Everything's looking fine. Pawn takes, bishop takes. Okay, white's doing good here. And then comes this move g5. Somewhere in these last couple of moves with g5, black has started playing a little bit loosely. And now on c4, suddenly white's the one who's fighting for an edge because of this pawn break. And that's not that complicated of a position to see. You know that especially in a Sveshnikov, but in any position with fixed pawns like this, you want to try to take advantage of the pawn break. only white can make a pawn break. Black cannot do the same. Black has no c-pawn, black has no e-pawn. Only white can break this pawn. And by breaking it, I mean a situation where I'm trying to remove it and dislodge it so that I can continue on with my d-pawn and opening lines for my heavy pieces. So only white has this possibility to play c4. So that's why he's wanting to break that open like that. So Magnus is doing the same thing. He doesn't really have a break per se, so he's going to try to push his pawns up and get into f3 if he can. So he's using what breaks he can. He's trying to get those pawns out of the way and open up lines for his heavy pieces. But I think from here on, this is just... I mean, this is as close as anyone's come. I mean, that first game, Carlsen was completely winning. It was like a dead win. Like, he probably would have, like, Fabi would have had to resign in a move or two. But, like, I don't know. This is pretty bad, man. This is pretty bad, guys. And right here is where he screwed it up. h3. Instead, he should have played the move. Queen to h5 with a borderline winning position. I don't know if there's any way to... Let's see what the computer says besides that queen move. Let's say, I don't know, for example, the bishop comes to here. So this pawn is still guarded by the queen. Queen to h3, a nice little cubby hole for this queen. So I'm going to hop into here. This is going to be disgusting. It suggests blocking it with a rook. And now the rook comes up, and I think that that rook is going to come to the e6 square. Really ugly. Really, really ugly. Pawn push, queen takes. If he just plays like whatever, some random move like here. Yeah, I can't even find a move for black that's not like losing here. Like, what do I play? This? Yeah, this is still coming. This is a crush. So there's an example of how quickly black can get himself into trouble in this position. So that's the reason why in this line, if instead queen h5 had taken place, black was prepared to give up that g-pawn just to try to get the pressure out of the way. And then again on g6, he's covering this d6 square